order. This is meeting number 11 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. Before we start, I'd like to announce the next meeting of OGGO is this Friday, which is May 15th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Next week, we have yet to hear from our whips as to the schedule. If you recall, at our last meeting, we had talked about all committee members going to their respective whips to try and tell them whether or not they wish to sit and meet on Monday, May 18th, which will be Victoria Day, and it's a statutory holiday. So if you haven't done so already, I suggest you contact your whips and give them your preference whether you would like to meet or not on Monday, May 18th. Colleagues, in just a few moments, we'll convene the meeting officially. I have asked both ministers, Minister Le Boutillier and Minister Qualtrough, to keep their remarks to no more than 6 minutes each, rather than the customary 10 minutes. That will save us a little bit of time. I'm asking both witnesses, ministers, and committee members, if you are speaking starting in one official language, please complete your remarks and all questions and answers after that in the one language of your preference. That way we won't have to flip back and forth between languages, and from a technical standpoint, it should go much, much smoother. When we get into the questions and answers, colleagues, we normally start a little late, particularly in the first hour, because of the technical issues we have to go through. And having said that, it also, as a consequence, we never seem to be able to complete a full round. So for this first hour, what I'm suggesting, we will amend the question period so that the first round will be 5 minutes each, the second round 4 minutes each, and the third round and final round 2 minutes each, which should allow us to get every member involved and ask and hopefully get answers for your questions. Now, with that, colleagues, I will now turn it over to Minister Le Boutillier for your opening 6-minute statement. Minister, the floor is yours.
Bonjour. À vous fournir revenu.
Good day, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the invitation to tell you about the work of the Canadian Revenue Agency in support of Canadians at this unprecedented time. The work you're undertaking in government to support Canadians during the pandemic is very important. I'm pleased to be accompanied today by the Commissioner for the Canadian Revenue Agency, Mr. Bob Hamilton, Mr. Vermatten, Assistant Commissioner, Assessment Benefits and Service Branch, Mr. Jeff Truman, Assistant Commissioner, Legislative Policy Regulatory Affairs Branch, and Mr. Ten Galvin, Assistant Commissioner, Compliance Programs. Since 2015, I've been focused on improving the service delivery that's offered to Canadians. This means the agency and I myself place Canadians at the centre of all our priorities. We have launched recently our People First philosophy. It's a pillar of the new service model and a key element in the agency's response to implementing the emergency economic measures. Driven by this People First philosophy, agency employees have been working very hard to support Canadians during the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to taking part in an impressive mobilization of human resources in the field, we are also a witness to a significant increase in technology being used every day to serve Canadians in a more accessible, efficient, and rapid fashion. Allow me to give you an overview of the CRA's work over the past 8 weeks. The agency started first by realigning its efforts in order to more efficiently provide service during the crisis. On March 18th, the agency announced it was pushing back tax filing deadlines for individuals, corporations, and trusts, thereby relieving Canadians of that particular task. In the same spirit, the agency also announced a temporary suspension of the vast majority of audits. Then it worked quickly to implement various government economic measures, first and foremost the CERB, a Canada Emergency Response Benefit. As you surely know, the agency is responsible for the significant part of administrating the CERB, and the CRA is fully responsible for administering the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy as well as the student benefit. Both of these programs, CERB and CEWS, provide pride in how quickly the application process has been applied for Canadians. I must emphasize that Canadians are being paid promptly within 3 working days, sometimes even 2 days, by direct deposit. We've also demonstrated significant technological capacity, which is very impressive when you consider online services were set up in just a few weeks. When the CRB was lost, the agency system registered 30,000 applications in the first 12 minutes. Since April the 6th, the agency has reviewed and processed nearly 7.5 million CERB applications for more than 4.5 million unique individuals. I'm very proud of the agency's incredible work under these circumstances. In fact, the media described the technological implementation of this benefit as a small miracle. A miracle, of course, that would have been impossible without the exceptional cooperation between the agency's public servants and those from Employment Social Development Canada. Since April 27, the agent has deployed a new economic measure, namely Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. Once again, everyone pitched in to make this application process a success. And do note that to today, we have received over 7,500 to this. We've also launched a student benefit, Canada Emergency Student Benefit, and students will soon be able to submit their applications online through My Account or online directly. The CRA was able to mobilize a lot of people quickly, starting with the agents in the call centers. For this purpose, the phone service had been migrated to a virtual platform, and over 7,500 employees responded to a call to lend a hand at the call centers. All this work took place, all the while making sure that appropriate compliance measures were in place for all applications for all aspects of financial assistance. Ensuring compliance, of course, is absolutely essential to the agency's mission. We committed to preserving the integrity of our Canadian tax system. And in this regard, the agency developed strict auditing measures, both electronic and manual, and several other safeguards for claimant eligibility, refund terms, and even dealing with tax loopholes. You can rest assured that offenders will face severe consequences, up to and including imprisonment. Mr. Chairman, this pandemic continues to have a terrible impact on many of our fellow citizens, not only on their health, but also for their economic well-being. I'm proud of the efficiency with which the entire government has mobilized in recent weeks to support Canadians. And this leads me to begin thinking of an old dictum, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I can proudly tell you that the agency employees have shown that they are indeed very tough. I'm now prepared to take your questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Starting with Mr. Morantz. Mr. Morantz, welcome to our committee. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, Minister, for being here. Well, you've described your programs as being miraculous, and of course, not everything is coming up roses. Is your wage agency aware of any individuals who are currently collecting the emergency benefit, the CERB, who should not be, as they are not eligible?
Oui,
Minister,
je
go ahead,
remercie
please.
mon...
Yes, I thank my colleague for his question. The priority of the agency is to ensure that these benefits, these payments, be provided rapidly to all eligible Canadians. And as with all the other types of benefits administered by the agency, they will be doing a lot of checks after the fact, but they will be doing a lot of checks as to eligibility.
Well, with respect to eligibility, can you advise how many prisoners in Canadian prisons are currently receiving the $2,000 a month CERB benefit from your agency?
Je m'excuse, mais...
Sorry, I didn't quite grasp your question.
Madam Minister, there have been reports of prisoners in Canadian correctional institutions receiving CERB payments that would not be eligible. Are you aware of this, and how many prisoners across Canada are receiving the CERB payment?
Comme je le disais,
Well, as I was stating earlier, under current circumstances, very critical and of a historical scale, what we haven't seen since the Second World War, the primary objective at this point for the agency is that Canadians receive the benefits in order to survive this particular crisis. They have placed mechanisms in place to protect the taxpayers' money.
So I know there was no answer to that question, so I'll move on, Mr. Chair. With respect to social distancing regulations that are in place, it's difficult now for Canadians to get tax information to their preparers, particularly seniors and others who still file with paper forms. Will you direct your agency to extend the tax filing deadline beyond June 1st to allow Canadians more time to file?
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chair, our government is quite clear and understands that Canadians are going through a tough period, and we are there to support them. This is why we did announce a series of measures, one of which would be to delay the deadline for income tax returns. We're following the evolution of the situation quite closely, Mr. Chairman, and we will work. We're currently working on other solutions and options that will be communicated to you shortly.
Well, I'm glad to hear an extension is not off the table. Recently, we've been hearing from Canadians who file their tax returns with paper T1 forms that are experiencing extreme delays in receiving their refunds. When will these Canadians who file paper forms have their returns processed?
Mr. Chair, once again, the entire team at CRA has been mobilized to respond to all requirements and requests as quickly as possible. There's 7.5 million Canadians who have already applied. We continue to process tax returns, whether they're on paper or electronically, simultaneously, in order that people will receive any money that is due them as quickly as possible, Mr. Chair.
Well, Madam Speaker, I contacted your agency and they indicated that delays are to be expected and that they could not provide a concrete timeline. Canadians who filed by paper need to have their refunds, particularly to help them during this crisis. Can the minister confirm how long does it take your agency to process a paper tax return and why the delays?
Minister, if I may interrupt, since there's only about 10 seconds left for your answer, I would request that you provide that answer in written form and can send that to the chair of our committee, who will then be able to distribute your answer to all committee members.
Point of
Thank
order,
you for your
Mr.
understanding. We'll now go to
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kazmierczak for another 5-minute round.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I will be splitting my time with my MP or my colleague, MP Jauhari. Thank you very much, Minister, for your excellent testimony and your excellent report. I want to just ask if you can provide an update on exactly how many new approved CEWS, so Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy applications there are to date, whether it sort of matches the expectations that we had for the uptake for that program, and whether you have any feedback that you can share. We know that the CERB process was fairly simple and very straightforward. That's the feedback we heard. Just wanted to hear what we're hearing regarding the CEWS program.
Comme je le mentionnais, on sait que c'est une période.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very tough period for businesses and their employees, and the government is doing everything possible to support these Canadians. The application process was launched 2 weeks ago, and we've received 127,000 requests received since the launch of the program. The majority of these businesses are, in fact, SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises.
Just to follow up, Minister, thank you very much for that. But in terms of the feedback that you're receiving, in terms of the application process, what are we hearing from the businesses that are going through the application process? Are they finding it fairly straightforward as folks are with the CERB, or are there any challenges that we're seeing?
Well, what I might point out is that businesses that are making the application and request have in fact indicated that it was fairly clear, fairly simple. And that was the whole purpose. We wanted to provide programs or services that were in fact simple, accessible, and be addressed to the widest possible range of businesses. I can give you perhaps a few technical answers, either through by way of my officials, either Mr. Gallivan or Mr. Verdeman.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Hi, it's Bob Hamilton here. Can you hear me, and can I come in?
Yes, go ahead, please, Mr. Hamilton. Yes, Mr. Hamilton, go ahead.
Good, thank you. Just to respond quickly on the wage subsidy program, I think it's fair to say a more complicated program than the CERB. CERB was relatively simple in application, as the minister indicated, with a priority on getting the money out, but with proper verification to make sure that we catch up on people who don't deserve it. The wage subsidy, in contrast, covers a bunch of more complex business arrangements. And I think one of the things we did in response to that was we engaged with stakeholders as we were developing it to find out some of the questions and answers that we needed to do to make it simpler for businesses to apply. So I think the feedback has been good from that perspective. I note that the CFIB has been very positive in terms of our ability to answer their questions, but there's no doubt it's a more complicated program. But we've been quite satisfied so far. A lot of interest in the questions. I would say that the take-up is probably a little bit less than what we thought it would be at this point. But we know from all of the questions that people are still perhaps sorting out exactly how they will apply.
Now, Mr. Kuzmierczak, you have about 1 minute left.
Thank you very much, and I yield that time to my colleague.
Mr. Johari, please. Mr. Johari,
Yes. Sorry. Thank you to both Mr. Chair and my colleague for sharing his time with me. Quickly, Minister, in your speech that was handed to us, you talked about the mobilization and reassignment of a lot of resources within CRA to be able to deliver the programs. With the limit of time that is available, can you share some of the challenges, especially around training, around technology, and around how extended hours? How did you manage that process? Because we had a lot of calls that came in that the process was slow, but those calls has now almost disappeared. And I'd like to know how you manage those, if you could shed some light to that.
Unfortunately, Minister, we're completely out of time. So once again, I would ask that you prepare an answer in writing to our clerk, who will then be able to distribute your answer to all committee members. Now we'll go to a 5-minute round once again to Madame Vilnola.
Merci beaucoup.
Madame, 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much. First of all, might I inform you that I'd like to share my time with Monsieur Bartholomew Duval. Good afternoon, one and all. First of all, Madam Minister, welcome, and I'd like to thank you for the excellent work that your team has done so far. They're there to clarify the situation and not to handle any kind of critical accusations. In your presentation, you said that the activities of the agency have been realigned. What do you mean by that, and what were those activities? Well, you're absolutely correct when you say that the employees of the agency have been doing an incredible job. In order to get the programs up to speed and get these various benefits, regardless of what they were, wage subsidy, emergency response, and others, all the employees are concentrating on these emergency measures that we have to deliver to Canadians. Beyond that, we have to ensure, of course, the health and safety, the security of our employees. Many are working from home at this time, so we had to realign in a sense of restructure the telephone services, all the while maintaining confidentiality, security of the information of individual Canadians. So this is why when we talk about an incredible job, it was in fact. Thank you. You also said that there was a temporary suspension of audits. What about the 50 inquiries who are probably being investigated for use of tax havens? Are they suspended for the time being? No, these inquiries are still underway. When we talk about audits, we're talking about the standard audit, sampling audits on an ongoing basis. That's part of our responsibilities and our mandate. But if you need more information on the audits, technical side, one of my officials can probably answer to your question. No, I'm satisfied if the inquiries in those 50 cases were ongoing. I'd like to stick with tax havens. I know it's a hot button topic. People like to know how it's going on. You said that several $1 million have been invested to counter the use exploitation of these. If our input has been $1 billion, what's the payback? What has the government recaptured by way of revenue?
Merci.
Yes, thank you. The monies that were invested in this objective serve to consolidate and put into place the various tools that our officials require so that we can hire more auditors, for example, and to develop an expertise which was shrinking under the former government. How much did we earn with this investment? Well, as I say, investigations and inquiries are underway. Various files are going to probably be dealt with in a judicial, legal fashion. But Mr. Gallivan, who is our expert in this matter, can probably provide you a more fulsome question. The brute number, the gross, is $4.4 billion currently. But that's a gross amount, as mentioned the minister. We have a lot of cases still before the courts, at least a dozen cases, and a lot of these inquiries and results will be determined by the courts. However, right now we are standing at $4.4 billion. Thank you. I'll give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Barcelou Duval.
Okay, merci, Monsieur.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. An extremely rapid question. I'm an accountant by training, and when we work in our firm, we have these flow charts to get to understand the entire structure of an organization when we examine a business, for example. And I'm sure we'll see who the beneficial owner is, which business, who are the shareholders, etc. We need to know who are using tax havens and who are not using tax havens, because we have to know who the owners are of these.
I'm sir, completely out of.
Déjà? No.
Our next intervener, 5 minutes to Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I think with recent announcements, it's generally felt that by only targeting those convicted of tax evasion, the government is setting the bar far too low and is still letting public money go to companies that use offshore tax havens and funnel resources to tax shelter jurisdictions with public money. To the Honourable Minister responsible for CRA, by yes or no, will companies under investigation in the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers be still eligible for the large business credit?
Je vous dirais que, écoutez, la question.
Well, the question is far too complex to give you a yes or no answer. But what I can say is that all the programs that we implement serve to protect the employees of these businesses, regardless of who the employee may be working for. But we are continuing to try to control and contain these people who are using these strategies.
I can certainly appreciate, folks wanting to evade their taxes, but I want to make sure we don't evade the question. How many companies and taxpayers disclosed in the Paradise Paper cases have been convicted of tax evasion?
Ministre, unmute.
OK, excusez. Comme
Yes, I'm sorry. As I was saying to my colleague, this type of case is quite complex, and some companies are using very sophisticated strategies. We will continue to protect the employees, even if the corporation itself is suspect. We want to ensure that Canadians have enough money to put food on the table, pay the rent, and the corporations and businesses that use these factitious strategies will be put up before the law, and it can go as far as imprisonment.
That through the good work of the CRA and through your investigations, Honourable Minister, that you ought to have a list. Are you going to use the list of tax havens to drop on a list of companies that will not be eligible for credits to the large companies? And if so, what is this list and which tax havens are mentioned in it by country?
Écoutez, dans les.
In the measures that we've implemented over the last few years, working in conjunction with guidelines of the OECD, we are able to analyze about 4 countries per year, exchange of information, etc. And we want to ensure that taxes are being paid correctly. We are responsible to administer these programs. But as to the eligibility criteria or opening up the programs, I think that probably Minister Morneau would be more apt to reply more fully to those questions. We still want to protect the taxpayer. That's all.
As do we, and I think it doesn't have to be as complicated, perhaps, as it's being presented here today. The question is that when you put it specifically these benefits on tax convictions, we know that most of these are structured settlements that happen in a civil matter outside of the public eyes in probably non-disclosure protected deals. So by simple yes or no, aside from the companies that are found guilty of tax evasion, will companies or their subsidiaries that use these tax havens to legally, but I would argue irregularly pay less tax, be eligible for the millions of dollars in the large business credit?
Well, as I was saying to one of the earlier answers, the responsibility of the agency is to administer these programs. And if you would like some more information as to the criteria, you should address your question to the Minister of Finance.
So I will note that the question was not answered, but I will say that I did get feedback from my constituents here that your frontline CRA workers that are here in Hamilton Centre are doing an incredible job under this stress and this pressure. So I did want to go on the record and say that to you to end off with perhaps a more amicable note. Mr. Chair, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. We'll now go to our 4-minute round of questioning, starting with Mr. Moraz for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Minister, literally hundreds of billions of dollars are being spent in an unprecedented way in order to cope with the crisis. What is your agency specifically doing? What measures are specifically being undertaken to ensure there is accountability for all of these hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money being spent?
I thank my colleague for the question. The Canadian government is working diligently, and we're going through a major crisis, the greatest crisis at least since the Second World War. And there is a lot of money.
I'd like the minister to answer the specific question. What measures for accountability? We know we're going through a hard time. What are the measures that are accountability for hundreds of billions of dollars?
Well, as I was trying to explain, the agency has put in place various accountability measures and trying to focus the energy on getting money into the pockets of our taxpayers. Once the crisis is over, there will be ample time to check and verify.
Now, in the Finance Committee meeting on April 16th, I asked your officials about problems with the call centers, and their answer, they seemed quite proud of it. They said that according to your internal study, 88% of Canadians who called your call centers got accurate information. Of course, that meant that 12% did not. Do you think that this is good enough, Madam Minister?
We recognize that there's a problem, but particularly associated to the high volume of requests, given the number of programs, new programs that have been put into place. We encourage people very seriously to use online services, but I'm quite proud that we were able to reach almost 7.5 million Canadians. There's still work to be done. Is it perfect? No, it is not. But we continue to work on getting the last and getting the solutions.
I would just finish by asking, there were the two reports, the Stantec report and the CFIB report, both released very recently that had far worse results than your internal report. According to Stantec, which you commissioned on your own, 87% of Canadians were dissatisfied with the service. Now, with the added volume of calls, how can Canadians be assured that they're going to have their paper returns processed in time and other questions answered accurately?
Well, as mentioned earlier, the focus of the government, given a global situation, we agree on this point. The important part is that people get the benefits, whether it's a CERB or CEWS. The energy has been concentrated on getting that money into the hands of Canadians. We'll continue to take a look at these tax returns, for example, get their refunds as quickly as possible as well.
I'll go to Mr. Weiler for 4 minutes, please. Mr. Weiler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Minister, and the other witnesses for joining our committee meeting today. I just also want to start by saying thank you to the incredible work that all the folks in CRA have done to really get these benefits out there, and the numbers are truly astounding. And the feedback that I've heard is that the process has been fairly simple. And I know that even with the wage subsidy, businesses in my riding are already receiving that in their bank accounts. But given that these benefits are being dispersed very quickly, And Minister, given that you mentioned that the focus on ensuring that they're and enforcing the sanctity of these programs and ensuring that they're not abused is going to be done after the fact. I was hoping you could explain how exactly the government intends to handle fraud related to the emergency response benefit.
Écoutez, dans les
Among the programs that have been implemented recently, we just want to ensure that people can buy their groceries and pay the rent. And we talk about 7,005,000 that are registered for this. This is money they need immediately. We put these programs in place as we do with our tax system, that it's an honor-based system. They ask for the money if they think they qualify, and we verify that. Mr. Frank Vermatten, under whose brief this falls, certainly can talk to you about the verifications that are done to see about admissibility.
Mr. Weiler? I'm not sure if one of the other witnesses wants to.
No, it's Frank Vermatten here. I'd be happy to speak to that if you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, I think we're doing a lot, and we have a lot of systems in place to ensure that the right people are getting the money. So, we are the CRA. We have a lot of information that we collect regularly on people, the amount of money they have earned, the amount of money they're going to earn this year. So we have those records. We have that, and the CERB, as you know, is based on social insurance numbers. So we can do a matching between the amounts that individuals receive through the CERB and the income they're earning. We're also asking employers to provide us additional information in February next year on the T4 information that they provide us, so that we know when people earned income, when they were rehired. So that way, I think we'll be able to do a very good job of matching the two. And in the case where there is a mismatch, we'll be writing people letters to indicate to them that our records show that they may have earned money at the same time. And if they have, we'll of course be asking them to pay that back. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And
well, you've got approximately 30 seconds.
Okay, Minister, the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program is really important for innovation-oriented stakeholders. I was wondering if you could give us a quick update on the program and where things stand during the pandemic.
In a very, very short answer, please, Minister.
Écoutez, je peux vous dire qu'on a mis en place là, un processus.
I would indicate that we have put in an evaluation process for the shred, and we're preparing our people to be able to continue to support small and medium businesses as well as other enterprises.
Go to Mr. Abute for 4 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Minister. The question is, there's so many ineligible people apply for CERB and they should not be applying, they should not be getting this money. You mentioned that there's 7.5 million applications that you've received, from 4.5 million Canadians, and your system was so thoroughly that you were able to basically identify and make sure that you review and control every single application that went through the system. How come you were not able to discover the ineligible people that applied for CERB at the same time before it gets to be a backlog down the road?
Je remercie mon collègue pour.
I thank the colleague for his question. As mentioned, we implemented a program which is absolutely essential in order to respond as quickly as possible to Canadians' needs. We also recognize that some individuals might, by inadvertence, because I wouldn't want to imply or allude to the fact that they might be dishonest, that they could have made some mistakes. And as Mr. Vermatten has mentioned earlier, Verification will occur next year, and it's part of the agency in any case to verify, to audit, and to confirm. And that
why the audit has not happened at the front, since you designed a specific program to do so. Why didn't that happen at the beginning?
Ben, écoutez,
well, I think that it's a very could be perhaps a simple answer to the question. This is a historical event, and 7.5 million Canadians immediately tried to register for to the program. It's obviously important to them.
But some people receive more than probably $6,000 at the first 2 weeks. That means there must be a red flag there to let you know, or to tell you that there's more money being going where they should not be going. And in the meantime, the question is, how many applicants you think that they apply where they're ineligible?
ce que je veux dire à mon collègue, c'est
in response, once verification occurs, we'll be able to recapture those monies. But it's important that single parent families, families with many children, that individual Canadians who lost their jobs, have no source of other revenue due to COVID-19, get money.
What do you estimate the number of people? How many? That's the question.
Once we've responded to the population's needs, so we make sure they got food on the table, that they've paid the rent, that Canadians are secure once again, it'll be a lot simpler to get the details required.
That's not the question. The question, how many? What do you estimate?
I'm sorry, Mr. Labute, if we're completely out of time, but Minister, if you would not mind responding to Mr. Labute's question in writing to our clerk. We will now go to Mr. Johari for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I'm going to re-ask the same question that I asked to save the Minister and the Department providing a response in writing. Minister, in your opening statements that were submitted, you mentioned about the mobilization of so many of CRA resources, as well as reassignment of up to about 7,500 employees who answered the call. And you also talked about that you implemented, you kept the process integrity, as well as you implement strict auditing. Can you share with us some of the challenges, initial challenges, and your partnership with the employees, the training, and how did you work with the unions and also various other departments such as ESDC to be able to roll out all of these programs, which were coming at different stages? Thank you.
Je remercie mon collègue pour son
Thank you for that question. Well, once the agency receives a request or an application through our call centers, we obviously were aware we were going to need to hire extra personnel at the call centers, in particular 7,500 individuals within the agency volunteered their services. For technical responses, my agent, Mr. Hamilton, could perhaps offer an answer.
Sure, I'm happy to come in, Mr. Chair, if you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, I think just to understand, without going on too long, but it is a very interesting story for the agency. If you think about the unprecedented volume of demands that we had, and the strain that that was going to put on not only our call centers, but processing in other parts of the agency, coupled together with the physical distancing that we had to adhere to, and keeping people at home so they weren't flattening the curve, so that we were trying to flatten the curve and not spread the virus. That was quite an interesting combination of factors to have to put in place. So we did realign the agency. We pushed a pilot project that we had, enabling call center agents to take calls remotely. It was going to be a small scale. It turned into a very big scale because of the nature. We had to get people on the phones to answer the questions. Our call center volumes are very high. That was one thing we did. We had other parts of the agency that either couldn't work because they needed the access to the workspace, but they had to stay home, or because we slowed down our audit and verification and collection activities, we had those people available. So we put out a call, said, if anybody can help with the phones, please put your name forward. And that's
how did you manage the long hours, the 12 hours with the employee as well as with the union?
Well, we had very good discussions with the union every step of the way as we've tried to develop our business plan. We've been walking this balance between keeping people separated and at home as much as possible while trying to get the very important work done. So we've worked very hand in hand with the unions. We've had shift work in a couple of places. And as the crisis has moved on, we've had to change our business plan to try to bring other parts of the agency in. And each step of the way, we've checked that business continuity plan with our unions and our employees. We've had good communication with
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
To tell them what's going on.
Thank you, sir. We'll now go to our final 2-minute rounds. Mr. Bassirou Duval, you have 2 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to complete the question I asked initially, every company has got a T-slip or something, and you see where it comes from in origin, so we can determine who the owner of a business is. So I'm still on the tax haven issue here, and when they have holdings that are in a tax haven, it's easy for you to get the information. I'm sure it is. The question I have for the minister is, do you have a list of those corporations and businesses that are the property of Canadians in order to ensure that those who benefit from government assistance at this time are not chronic users of these tax havens? You can find out, and don't give them the money. Well, it's an extremely important question, and I would refer him to Mr. Ted Gallivan, our Assistant Commissioner, who can give you a technical response. It's much more complex than it may appear. Yes, we have several lists, and the complexity lies in the fact of which aspects are being done. Abusive tax practices, there's some in Luxembourg, Barbados. So we know which countries are where this activity is centered. And we are satisfied in some cases of legitimate strategies that are used. But we have to respect Canadian jurisprudence, and we have the complexity is that there are a lot of situations. No, I understand what you're saying.
For our final intervention to Mr. Green for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Minister. You will note that on April 15th, I provided your ministry with a letter of request asking that you provide information on how individuals who are not able to file their taxes by the June 1st date can ensure that their supplementary income supports, such as GIS, GST, and the child tax benefit, and other associated provincial benefits, are not cut off as a result. In my letter, I recommended that you consider extending the deadline once again until the fall, and that the federal government extend the current benefit payments until October 2020 based on the 2018 income filings. If you can comment on that, because in our office, we process hundreds of these through our volunteer tax clinics, and many people are at risk of getting cut off of significant monthly income supports.
Je reconnais auprès de mon collègue que les
I acknowledge that many Canadians weren't able to get the usual services. If we take a look at the various benefits, but it's due to this current situation. We did receive your letter, thank you, and also letters from other MPs. We are taking these seriously under study, and we are looking at your recommendations.
GIS, Honorable Minister, accounts for sometimes 70 to 80% of a person's income. And when you look at what the typical full OAS pension, it's only $613. So we're talking about $12,000 extra dollars a year, $1,000 extra dollars a month that is right now in critical peril. I implore you to please consider having these extended using the 2018 filings.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And Minister, I'm sure that you will take Mr. Green's comments under the appropriate discretion and provide an answer to Mr. Green if you can possibly. Minister, thank you very much for your appearance here today. We have to set up for our second round of questions with Minister Qualtrough. So Minister, once again, thank you. And to all of your officials, you are excused. And colleagues, we will suspend for a couple of moments while we prepare for our next round of witnesses. We are suspended. And for the benefit of the Minister Qualtrough, Minister, I mentioned this in my opening remarks before you came on the line. If you are speaking in one official language, if you could continue to speak in the same official language without switching back and forth, that will help our technical ability to avoid delay. And colleagues, for those of you who have just joined us, the similar request of you. If you are going to be asking a question in one official language, please ask the entire question and responses in the same language so we don't have to switch back and forth. And with that, Minister, I'll turn it over to you, Minister Qualtrough, for 6 minutes, please. Oh, and colleagues, last thing, we'll remain with the same procedure I had for the first hour, where there will be 5-minute questions in the first round, 4-minute questions in the second, and then 2 minutes in the final interventions. Minister, 6 minutes is over to you.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I have my remarks are in both languages, back and forth, so I'm going to do my best to just do English. So please indulge me. Hello everyone. I'm pleased to join you today to speak about the measures to support Canadians during the COVID-19 pandemic as they pertain to my current portfolio. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the committee for your study on our government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Your work is truly essential to our democratic process. It's been nearly 2 months now that Canadians have been adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic, gripping our country and the world. To give you a sense of the scope of the need, we've received 11.38 million applications, of which we have processed 11.29 million applications under the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, both through Service Canada and the CRA. A total of $30.48 billion in payments have been made to 7.83 million people. The the CERB was created to come to the aid of Canadians during these unprecedented circumstances. In reality, our EI system was not built for the situation of a global pandemic. It doesn't cover all the different situations that Canadians find themselves in this time of a public health crisis. Service Canada and CRA stepped up, formed a team, and in the space of a couple of weeks, elaborated and put into place a system that really responded to Canadians' needs. For eligible workers, the CERB provides temporary income support of $500 a week for up to 16 weeks. It applies to workers who have stopped working for reasons related to COVID-19. It also supports working parents who are staying home to care for children because of school and daycare closures. We've made extraordinary efforts to make this emergency benefits as inclusive as possible. Workers, including the self-employed, can earn up to $1,000 per month while collecting the benefit. The benefit also applies to workers who have recently exhausted their EI regular benefit payments and are unable to start working again because of COVID. This helps many seasonal workers, including fishers and those in the tourism industry, who may have not had their usual seasonal work to return to as a result of COVID-19. Now a word about supporting temporary foreign workers and ensuring Canada's food supply. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it difficult to bring in the needed temporary foreign workers. That's why we've made modifications to our temporary foreign workers to try and add some flexibility to the system. I want to emphasize that there are definitely jobs available for Canadians in these areas that are also supported by temporary foreign workers, as has been the case historically. A word now about students and youth. We've announced comprehensive support for post-secondary students and recent graduates, representing an investment of approximately $9 billion. As part of that support, we introduced a 4-month Canada Emergency Student Benefit. Students who are not receiving the CERB and meet the criteria for this new benefit will be able to apply to receive $1,250 per month between May and August. Students with permanent disabilities and students with dependents could receive an additional $750 per month. We've heard a lot in the past few weeks about how these payments might disincentivize students to work. Well, that's not what we've heard from young people across the country. We've heard very clearly from students that they want to work and serve in their communities in this time of crisis. That's why we also announced the creation of 76,000 additional jobs and training opportunities, including jobs in the agriculture and processing sectors, through mechanisms like our Youth Employment and Skills Strategy program. This is on top of the 70,000 jobs that will be available through the Canada Summer Jobs program, with greater flexibilities for employers to hire young people this summer and through the fall. Other important measures to help students during the COVID-19 pandemic are changes to the Canada Student Loans program. These changes will expand eligibility, increasing the weekly cap and doubling the value of our grants. These new measures came in addition to earlier measures to pause the repayment of student and apprentice loans, interest-free, until September 30th, 2020. Mr. Speaker, we've taken these measures with the goal of helping Canadians in this and to support our economy. As the situation evolves, my colleagues in Cabinet and myself will be ready to respond to whatever Canadians need, and I'm available now for questions. Hello?
Yes, Minister, I'm not sure whether you completed your remarks or if you were
I
just
have,
switching
yes.
Oh.
No, I apologize. I said I'm available for questions. That was kind of my clue. I apologize.
No, it was fine. I was just having a little difficulty picking that up, but I thank you for the economy of your words. It gives us more time for questions. And colleagues, will now go to our first round of questioning. 5 minutes, please, Mr. McCauley.
Minister Qualtrough, good to almost see you here. Minister, you've been repeatedly asked by both MPs and the media about people who do not feel safe to return to work and do not return, remain eligible for CERB. The finance minister said that you would still be eligible, but you haven't clarified any yes or no. So can you please tell us now, will workers who are called back to work but fear for their own or their family's safety remain eligible for the CERB?
Well, thank you for the question. I suspect the nuance I've felt and obligated to provide, which I will provide again here today, is that refusal to work is a very complicated process with investigations, and I didn't want to dive into the provincial labor law and federal labor code, but the message I'm trying to convey at the end of the day, Mr. McCauley, is if you feel unsafe to work and you are not working for COVID reasons and you otherwise qualify for the CERB, then you are eligible.
So you're in agreement with the finance minister then?
Well, yes, if someone's gone through the process of whatever their federal or provincial refusal to work regime is, then at the end of the day, yes.
Well, that is very different, though, because the province of Alberta, for example, under Labor Code, you have to have proof that it's unsafe. You can't just feel unsafe because of COVID. You would actually need a ruling from the Labor Board. So you're kind of contradicting yourself. If I am at home, I can go back to work, but I do not feel it's safe to go back to work because perhaps I'm living with an elderly person or someone with a compromised immune system. I refuse under EI laws or labor code. It has to be checked. But finance minister says I can refuse, but you're saying, well, it's nuanced because of the province. Do you agree with the finance minister? If someone says no because they feel for their safety, they can remain on CERB?
Well, the situation, I think
a straight answer from you. Do you agree with the finance minister?
Mr. McCauley, it is fact pattern specific. If you have to stay home to take care of a loved one, you absolutely can go on CERB.
Okay, we're not talking about a loved one. Specifically, if you feel unsafe returning to work, the finance minister says, yes, you can stay at home and stay on CERB, but we're not getting that same precise answer from you. Why not?
I guess I'm looking at I'm trying to respect provincial jurisdiction, but from an eligibility from CERB perspective, the answer to your question is yes. But there's also a layer of provincial labor jurisdiction in some cases.
But the province is not deciding the CERB. You are.
No.
So you're saying if someone stays home because they feel unsafe returning to work, they can still save on CERB. And that's the same as the finance minister. And if I'm hearing that well, wonderful. Now, you've stated the wage subsidy, or the government stated the wage subsidy is going to be extended, I think, past June. Is there extent or is there talk right now about extending the CERB past the original stated time?
Right now, as I've said publicly, we are looking at the interaction between the CERB and the wage subsidy. With only a week and a bit into the wage subsidy, I apologize, it might be 2 weeks. In any event, we're looking to see how many people transition from the CERB to the wage subsidy. We're trying to figure out what the next phase of support for individual workers. Right now, I think it's premature to say exactly what the next phase of support for workers will be, but we are definitely not abandoning workers.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me ask you then, the uptake for the wage subsidy, of course, for CERB, it was immense immediately, millions in the first month. The wage subsidy, the uptake to me seems very, very small. What were your projections? And what is the government's original thoughts between the relative small amount of people applying for the wage subsidy versus the almost 8 million people who have applied for CERB?
Well, again, I think it's too early to tell exactly how the pace of the applications will be as they come in. Certainly, I'm very interested to see if there are things we can do to streamline process. If it's a process thing, we can look at doing the best we can to help people. 1.3 or 1.7 million employees have been approved for the wage subsidy. That's not an insignificant number. And if that's a weekly number, one could predict that it would grow quite quickly over the next weeks.
How much time?
Mr. McCauley, I forgot to buzz you in at the outset, but I'm saying you've got about just a little under a minute left, please.
Okay. You talked about, Minister, you talked about streamlining the application for the wage subsidy. What are you thinking of?
Well, to be honest, I'm not actually sure what where, if any, there are any hiccups in our system, in our process. I can tell you from a data collection point of view.
How are we getting feedback? Like I see Dan Kelly from the CFIB. He's tweeting out. He's commenting on a lot of issues. Chambers are. How are we getting feedback on how we can streamline it or make it better or make it work better?
Well, certainly,
Minister, that's a good question. But because of the interest of time, I would ask that if you could fully answer Mr. McCauley's question in writing, and please send that to our clerk, who can then distribute your answer to all of our colleagues on this committee. Would that be possible?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. McKinnon for 5 minutes, please. Mr. McKinnon.
Bonjour, Madame la Ministre, et je suis.
Good day, Ms. Minister. It's glad to hear from you. It's a pleasure to have you on board. I'd like to ask a question on temporary foreign workers. In Quebec, as well as in other parts of Canada, it's absolutely essential that, particularly in agriculture, we get access to some of these workers. It's essential for food security in Canada and for the well-being of all Canadians, and also for the success of our.
Mrs. Block.
I'm sorry, but there is something very wrong with the sound. The MP who is speaking in French and our interpreter are I think vying for the sound. They are both at the same level, and it is very hard to even hear either of them.
Mrs. Block, I'm hearing the same problem. And Mr. McKinnon, perhaps we can try and solve this. If you wanted to speak in English, let's see if that helps at all.
I'm going to suggest that si j'appuie.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it may be an issue. Mr. McKinnon, si vous pouvez vérifier que vous êtes sur la canal en France.
If you'd like to check, Mr. McKinnon, if you're on the English channel, when in English and French in French, that might help.
C'était effectivement fermé.
In fact, that was the case, Mr. Clerk, and thank you very much. Is this better? Ms. Block, are you getting this clearly? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, shall I repeat my question, Mr. Chair?
Well, Steve, if you could.
You're out of time.
Yeah, we're wasting time as we go along. I'll give you an extra 35, 45 seconds because of the delay, but if you could start again, that would be fine.
D'accord.
Okay, Madam Minister, I'll condense my question. Can you tell us what will be the outcome for temporary foreign workers, given the changes that you brought to this package to mitigate the circumstances because of COVID-19?
Really important question, and it's lovely to hear your voice as well, Mr. McKinnon. We've taken a number of steps in the administration side of the temporary foreign worker program, as well as in streamlining some of our policy decisions around it. So on the one hand, we've tried to make it more streamlined to give employers the certainty of getting their LMIAs approved, and on the other hand, we're trying to make sure workers are protected and employers know very clearly their obligations. So like anyone, temporary foreign workers coming into the country have to have a mandatory 14-day isolation period. There's protocols in place for the period around that. So what is expected of employers, we have beefed up regulations, and when I say we, I mean IRCC, so that there are significant consequences on employers if they fail to comply with these beefed up compliance conditions, including monetary penalties, if I'm not wrong, of up to $1 million. We're trying to make it easier for temporary foreign workers to move between jobs. We're trying to make it easier for, as I said, LMIAs to get approved. We've waived the minimum recruitment requirements. We're prioritizing certain kinds of LMIAs. I don't know, Graham, if you have anything else to add. The list is quite significant.
No, I think you've covered it, Minister.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've extended the period of, I've got a list in my head, I apologize, Mr. Chair, of a whole bunch of things, so I'm happy to answer more questions.
Mr. McKinnon, please proceed.
Donc, pour poursuivre dans les travailleurs étrangers.
Well, to follow up on the TFW program, what kind of results? What are the gaps? What should Canadians know as to the access or availability of temporary workers? And what can Canadians do? How can they contribute to this manpower shortage currently?
Important questions. Thank you. So, as I said in my opening remarks, there are jobs that are not being filled as they historically have been by temporary foreign workers. And we have put in...
Minister, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your audio level is quite low. I'm not sure if you're speaking away from the mic or from your phone, but if you could increase the volume somehow.
I sure can. I haven't moved, but I will try and use my coaching voice. So we've taken a number of steps to both help employers get the temporary foreign workers they need and to really...
Madam Minister Qualtrough, again, the audio level is extremely low, and I'm not sure if our technicians can help, but as long as you're speaking directly into your receiver microphone, if you could try that, ma'am, again, that yep. Hopefully will solve the problem.
Mr. Chair, it works for me.
I'll do my best.
Fine for me.
Okay, and I feel like I'm almost eating the telephone, so I'm trying very hard to speak right into it. So as I said, what we've done in Canada is a call to action. So it's called Step Up to the Plate, Feed Canada, and it's this idea where we're looking for Canadians, like they did in France, to fill the jobs that maybe haven't been filled this year by temporary foreign workers with Canadians who are looking to work. So we're looking to get a domestic supply, but we're also trying to make it as easy as possible for a foreign supply of workers to also come in while maintaining the public health priority of ensuring that everybody is kept safe in the process.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now go to Madame Vignola. 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Madam Minister, for being here with us today. As so far as CRA is concerned, how do you ensure good communications with them and that there's no redundancies or overlap in what you're trying to do? Somebody told me that they got the CERB, the benefit, twice, and double payments on EI.
We have been working very closely between Service Canada and CRA from the beginning, despite our best efforts in messaging and explaining to Canadians that they didn't have to.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Block.
I am sorry. I know that this is important testimony that we want to hear. We definitely value the time that we get with the ministers to answer all of the questions that we have, but the technical difficulties that we are having, I am having a very difficult time hearing her response to Madame Vignola's question. It's a little incomprehensible to me how one of our ministers is not actually set up very well to do this this virtual committee meeting, that we're having the kind of difficulties that we are, but it's really not doing justice to this committee meeting today.
Thank you, Mrs. Block. And Minister, again, I concur with Mrs. Block. As I've mentioned a couple of times in my interventions, I personally, I'm not sure about the rest of the committee, but I'm having extreme difficulty with the audio levels. And I'm not sure, Mr. Clerk or Madam Minister, if there's anything we can do, but I wish that we could somehow increase that audio level to allow our committee members to hear the minister's responses.
Mr. Chair, as I was, if I may, I don't know if it's a point of order or a point of information, I've been switching on and off between the English and the off on the interpretations, and I find that when the minister is off, it's fine, but then I have to switch it back on for Madam Vignola. So I don't know if that is helpful, but I would also, like to put to this committee that we perhaps move a motion at the appropriate time to invite the minister back when they do have the proper equipment in place to do a video conference, which by now should most certainly be commonplace.
If I may, Mr. Chair, following on what Mr. Green said, I've noticed the same thing. When there's no interpretation on, which is essentially the floor channel, the minister, I can hear her clearly. Unfortunately, for some reason, the English channel, there seems to be a sound issue. So when, for example, somebody's listening to interpretation, there is a bit of an issue there. I'm going to ask I've asked our technicians to see if there's anything they can do, and I will let you know as soon as I get a response from them.
Thank you. Perhaps then in the interim, Mrs. Block, you can go to the floor and we'll see if that helps. Minister, please, if you could continue your testimony, and hopefully we'll have the audio levels corrected.
I thank you, and I apologize, Mr. Chair. I have what I thought was a very good setup here, and the reason I'm not participating by video conference is because my enlarging software on my computer is not compatible with having a whole bunch of things going on due to my visual impairment, so I requested just to participate by phone. I can certainly try by video conference in the future, but I can't guarantee I'll have. It's just proven very difficult, both in virtual parliament and other settings, for me to be able to thoughtfully answer without being able to see the screen, to toggle buttons and toggle interpretation and what have you. So I apologize, and I will...
No apologies necessary, Minister, but I can assure you from my side, and I see Mrs. Block nodding as well, when we are on, committee members are on the floor channel, your audio levels are quite good.
Well, I thank you, and I must confess I have lost track of the question. Could someone please repeat it for me?
Madame Vignola. S'il vous plaît.
Pas de problème, simplement.
No problem. No, of course, I hope you stopped the clock when this little situation arose. I'd like to have my 5 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Madame Minister Qualtrough, were you able to hear the question from Madame Vignola?
Oh, I apologize. I thought the question was that could she have her 5 minutes back?
Oh, yes. No, I have not docked her any time for that.
Okay, thank you. Vas-y, Madame.
Merci.
Go right ahead, Madame. Okay. In my writing, I have people that received not only the CRB and dollar twice, but EI as well. So, ESDC and CRA cooperating to avoid this kind of situation?
Despite our best effort that people were being double paid, we now have a much more streamlined process where this is not happening. People are not receiving any double payments. We are not penalizing anybody if they did. We're working with them to remedy the situation, and CRA and Service Canada are working in lockstep to ensure this isn't happening anymore.
Merci beaucoup. Combien de fonctionnaires travaillent actuellement?
How many employees work at these emergency benefits programs?
5,000 de chez nous.
5,000 in-house.
Chez vous, mais
5,000 in-house, but in total, how many is that?
Numbers, we just have the ESD. Unless, Graham, do you have CRA numbers as well?
Je pense que c'est un autre 4,000 personnes, mais on peut vérifier.
Another 4,000 employees, I believe, but we will have to confirm that to give you a hard number. Well, given that we had a directive to use the network perhaps outside of peak hours, does this involve that people will have to work beyond their usual workday? Does it mean overtime? Even though you increased a lot of staff as well?
I understand that there are some people choosing, we're not making people work overtime, obviously, but there are people working overtime. Graham, do you have further information?
Mr. Flack, you'll have to unmute your microphone, please.
Yeah, plusieurs de nos employés.
Many of our employees have volunteered to work extra hours. We didn't compel anyone to do so, of course. But as for the call centers as well, are answering calls, but there are other employees that are processing a lot of requirements. But it's all done in a volunteer, non-compelling way. Can you evaluate, can you estimate what the costs of all this overtime or extra salary dollars that you're spending so to ensure that Canadians get their benefits quickly? We could try to do some calculations, I guess. The first goal, of course, was to reach the needs of as many people as possible, as efficiently as possible. There's a rather phenomenal amount of applications, so we put hundreds of people to work. We had set aside a certain budget, but we will make the final count at the end of the month.
Bon, là,
Okay. Service Canada offices were closed fairly quickly. The end of March, early April, if memory serves. I may be wrong. Now, people are quite worried, particularly people with some disabilities, whether they're visual or physical or other, and also people who have very little access to broadband. How do you respond to those needs?
Thank you for the question. It's very important. We have been working with national disability organizations and other service providers to make sure that everybody, regardless of any barrier they face, has the information that they need to both apply and understand the different benefits that are available for them. In addition, of course, Service Canada, we do have an online presence and we have augmented our call service capacity, but we really have been working through our Disability Advisory Committee and other means to make sure that the information is widely disseminated across the country.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And picking up on that, if a person were to apply for CERB through Service Canada, are they required to undertake more reporting requirements than if they had applied through the CRA? And if so, why? And has this slowed down the delivery of the benefits?
So the very quick answer is no, that it is one portal at the beginning, and it does not in any way slow down the benefits. Just to confirm that, please, Graham, but my understanding is no, the back-end processing, how it's directed, does not impact that at all.
The speed of benefits isn't affected, but we do ask additional questions for people coming in on the EI side. And the reason is that those people will ultimately transition back to employment insurance. And we don't want to create a gap or require those people to come back in and reapply for employment insurance. So on the EI side, that's the reason we triage them at the front end. If they are coming in on the EI side, we are collecting that additional information, even though it doesn't slow down the processing, so that when they eventually move back to EI, we won't be required to go back to them.
It just seems that, in my constituency, we're receiving calls and talking about service standards between departments. Once the word gets out that it's easier just to apply through CRA, what would stop the public from doing that and avoiding Service Canada altogether?
Well, I mean, because it's a portal, like the first page that you go to basically triages and sends people to a different set of questions depending on if they are eligible for EI or not. So I suppose what you're saying is somebody who might be EI eligible would choose to say they were not so that they could just apply for the CERB without any other questions asked of them. Is that what you're asking, sir?
Yeah, generally, correct, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is happening. But what we then know based on SID numbers is who actually is EI eligible. So when we port them back into the system at the back end, it will be along the same veins as if they had attested that they were EI eligible.
And I can
it
certainly
just won't be as
appreciate
streamlined at the end. Yeah.
Sure, and I can certainly appreciate the need for having these portholes that triage. I think that certainly the front lines in both departments are doing whatever that they possibly can. But we're also hearing many stories about CERB applicants who have had to try for days to speak to a real person at Service Canada, and even if they get through, the phone system hangs up on them when they're supposed to be transferred to a person. Do we have enough staff to manage the call volume?
From the beginning, I think the message I've been reluctantly conveying is one of patience, and it has been very difficult for people to get a hold, despite the fact that we have thousands of people. We have, rallied volunteers, we've rallied retired public servants to come and be part of our call centers to answer Canadians' questions, but with millions and millions of applicants, as somebody said earlier, almost 8 million, the reality is it has proven quite difficult. And despite our best effort, it still takes a long time to get through to Service Canada. Graham, would you have anything to add?
Well, before Graham jumps in, Graham, if you're going to add, may you please let us know what the current call center standards are for the General Service Canada phone line?
Hi, this is Cliff Groen from Service Canada. So a number of points that I would raise. Certainly, we do know that there has been challenges in accessing our EI call center, and there's been a number of measures we've put into place. One of which has been significantly automating our technology. We had been having issues back in April in which a number of callers were being blocked at the automated level. Our EI call center, lots of clients can actually self-serve and be able to report on a bi-weekly basis using that automated system. But because of the number of callers we were receiving, we had lots of callers who were being blocked. We've actually adjusted that technology, and actually since last week, we're now in a situation in which no callers are being blocked at the automated response, which has actually dramatically improved service for those Canadians. Secondly, we are in the process and have been continuing to hire lots of different call center agents. We stood up a new 1,500 call center agent call center for the CERB, and that's in addition to our existing 1,000 members.
As my respectfully on the actual service standard, what is the service standard for the phone line versus the online portal? I can tell you that our constituency offices are an extension of the public service. When the phone gets dropped at your line, they're calling our offices. And I can share with you that even when we try to get through, we're having significant problems.
Yes,
so
and
we want to make sure we're working together here and that we have service standards, particularly in responding to MP offices, and that are clear and predictable.
Sir, yes. I'll have to get you to provide that answer in writing to our clerk because we're completely out of time. But if you could do that, I would appreciate it greatly. We'll now go to our 4-minute round of questions, starting with Mrs. Block.
But just a quick point of order as it relates to the writing, and I do apologize, Mr. Chair. Do we give them a time frame in which they're to actually reply? Because it's a good thing to say, but I just wonder what's the requirement for them to actually reply in writing.
I have never given a definitive timeline to reply. We're just saying as soon as possible. Mrs. Block, 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, and to your departmental staff for joining us today. So far, we have 7.59 million CERB applicants and 11 million applications. I'm wondering if you could tell us what percentage of applicants from the first month have reapplied for each of the next 2 subsequent periods, and what percentage of applicants have not reapplied for any subsequent periods?
Well, thank you. In fact, I've been asking those exact same questions. Graham, can you give us any preliminary answers?
So we're running those specific numbers, Minister, but the evidence is that virtually all the individuals applying in the initial period have applied in the second period. I guess what I'd say is the key interaction we can't give you right now is the interaction with the wage subsidy. As you know, when that came in, it is retroactive, and there's an expectation that people will leave the CERB as their companies bring them back on the wage subsidy. And we cannot do that matching up front because employers have not been asked to provide the SIN numbers for the people getting the wage subsidy up front. So we can't make that matching on an individual client-by-client basis with the wage subsidy until employers eventually provide those numbers.
Okay, so maybe just a more broader question. Is the individual utilization of CERB increasing or decreasing since it first opened in early April?
Graham?
Hi, sorry about that. We have seen a slight downward trend in terms of the number of new applicants coming in over the last few weeks, although it is very difficult to have definitive trends because things are moving very quickly.
Okay, thank you for that. So I guess my last question would be, Minister, in your response to my colleagues' questions earlier, you acknowledged or referenced the added layer of the provinces in some of the decision-making and some of the policies that you've contemplated. As the provinces begin to safely open up their economies, have you, together with your colleagues or within your department, had any discussions about any changes to the programs that you are overseeing as provinces start to get their economies back up and running?
Thank you. That's a really important question. And I'm working very closely with my provincial territorial colleagues, ministers of employment, and on the disability side as well, because it's very important for us to understand where the puck is going, for lack of a better analogy. And what I can tell you is our focus on supporting workers, and quite frankly, as the emphasis shifts to primarily supporting businesses, because of course the more people we have in their jobs is better than the people who are sidelined by the pandemic. We have to ensure that we complement what the provinces are doing and that we don't put any roadblocks or disincentives to get back into work.
Thank you very much.
Joanne, you have 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for taking the time to appear or provide your voice to this committee. On Friday, I had heard a lot of from expecting mothers, and with regards to for those who would qualify for EI, and some were put on EI early, or some were put on the CERB, and they were afraid that they'd be impacted by this because they wouldn't be billing, or not billing, but accumulating insurable hours. Can you talk to us or explain to this committee what those changes that have been done to the maternity and parental benefits?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So what had happened through our system is that expected mothers, so women who were answering yes to the question, as we just discussed in the EI stream, where are you pregnant, they were being, despite having applied for the CERB and more appropriately getting the CERB, they were getting EI regular benefits. And I had committed to addressing this, and I'd also committed that no woman that was on the CERB would in any way have her entitlement to EI maternity or parental benefits impacted. So as of last Friday, expected mothers who should have been receiving the CERB will have their claims converted retroactively. So just for precision, that means that if a woman was receiving less than $500, she would get a top up to $500. If she had been receiving more than $500, she will not have that money clawed back. And in addition, the weeks that she would have been collecting the CERB will not impact the number of weeks. So if weeks needed to be put back into her personal entitlement, that will happen as well. So we wanted to make sure that nobody was in any way detrimentally or adversely impacted by this system challenge we were facing. So it's solved.
Yeah, no, I know this is something that was important to, I didn't receive thousands of emails, but I certainly received emails from those who unfortunately had lost their jobs and were put on unemployment insurance, and they were wondering whether or not this would have impacted their their overall parental leave. So I think that's great news, and thank you for listening to those expecting mothers. The other issue that I'm hearing locally as well is with regards to how disabilities and those who are impacted by disabilities are getting treated in with regards to the pandemic. And I'm just hoping that I know there was a disability advisory group that was put together. Can you explain to this committee what this disability advisory group is discussing? And one of the issues was greater access to healthcare. Can you explain to this committee what the disability advisory group is doing with regards to that?
And you have slightly less than a minute, Minister, if you could.
Well, my goodness, I could talk about this one forever. So thank you for your really important question. People with disabilities in our country have faced significant barriers to accessing the healthcare system over the course of the pandemic, whether it's being impacted by visitor policies that don't let them have a communication support person with them, or triage practices that basically discriminate on the ground of disability. So the Minister of Health and I are both working with our PT colleagues, because as you know, health is such a provincial jurisdiction, to make sure that this isn't happening, that people are accommodating their right to health care and medical treatment is upheld, and that's one of the main priorities of our Disability Advisory Group, which is a diverse group of disability experts, people with lived experience, parents from across the country who have said that the number one thing they're worried about is health.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now go to Mr. Obote for 4 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Minister. The question to you, that you have said that you've received a legal opinion on the SERP legislation that gave you broad powers to interpret the law. So the question is, will you be able to table that legal opinion so we may properly scrutinize these expanded legislative powers that you have given yourself?
Well, as I said, we were advised that under a broad interpretation of the initial CERB legislation, we had the authority to, you're talking specifically about to putting in the $1,000, the capability for CERB recipients to earn $1,000, I assume. With a broad interpretation of the Act, we were given the advice that it was possible to do this, and that is the course we took, so as, quite frankly, to respond to what we were being asked to do by other parties and to give more Canadians access to the benefit.
That is the story, but the question is, will you be able to table that power that you've given yourself to the committee? Yes or no?
I'm in the position of advising the committee that I, basically made the decision that a broad interpretation of this law allows us to create a threshold of income under which Canadians can still receive the benefit. But as I've said in the past,
Minister, the time is very limited here.
Yep.
The straightforward question: will you be able to please table this power that you gave yourself to the committee? Yes or no?
Are you looking to find out the particular section of the Act under which we exercise the authority?
Well, I'm reading from your speech, Minister, and from what you've said. I'm not making any stories here. I'm just reading from what you've said.
Right. Well, there is regulatory authority in the first CERB legislation that allows the minister to create a class of income under which people can still receive the CERB. It was under that particular section of the Act that a broad interpretation allowed us.
Minister, I'm not asking of the shape of the oranges. All I'm saying is, question very straightforward. Would you be able to provide or table that authority that you gave yourself to the committee? And I think we have the right to ask that, and I think we deserve an answer.
Sir, I apologize. I'm not trying to evade. I'm trying to explain the authority under which we took the decision to create an income threshold of $1,000 for the CERB. And I've also committed publicly that I am prepared, for purpose of certainty, at the first possible opportunity to legislate that threshold if that makes everyone more comfortable. It was a decision that I took
That's no answer,
based on a broad interpretation.
I'm sorry, that is no answer. How much time I have, Mr. Chair?
You have less than 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Just how many? So basically, Minister, this is not an answer. I'm sorry. I was expecting an answer, and you've been trying to describe what you have said. It's clear what you've said, and I was expecting an answer, and we deserve an answer from you. And unfortunately, we did not get it. And I hope you will reconsider to basically provide what we asked for down the road. And thank you for now.
Thank you. We go to Mr. McKinnon for 4 minutes, please.
Oh, I'm going to hit the toggle. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope I'm coming through. And am I being understood or heard? Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. As time is rapidly eluding our grasp, I would like to give you the opportunity that this emergency benefit had to be created out of thin air and very, very rapidly. We've had a lot of comments on how it came about. Can you indicate to us what are your opinion as to use the EI system or use a parallel system which would pump much necessary funds into the financing and the finances of Canadians?
Your question. So I would say mid-March, two things were happening at the same time. The first was that we were getting an unprecedented level of EI applications. And it very quickly became, and very quickly I mean within days, became apparent that our EI system couldn't respond as nimbly as we needed it to. People would have to wait 12 to 18 months if we were processing millions and millions of EI claims. At the same time, we recognized that there were a lot of people who weren't falling within the EI system that we needed to help. Our initial solution was the creation of two new benefits that would parallel the EI regular benefits and EI sickness benefits. What then happened, again, within a day or two, was we realized that having four benefits out there was proving difficult and complicated for Canadians. So those two things happening at the same time, we got together and said we need to do something drastic, something different outside of EI. We need one benefit for everyone. We can't spend our time, and Canadians don't need us to spend our time trying to explain which stream. And so we basically pivoted within probably 48 hours from announcing those two first benefits to consolidating into one benefit all four streams, if you will, people who are EI eligible, EI sickness eligible, and the same too for non-EI people. Worked very quickly to find a solution within our existing systems. Found CRA and Service Canada to be the solution to that because, quite frankly, proven track record in delivering for Canadians and Canadians' trust, in particular CRA, because they get their GST, they get their tax refund, they get their Canada Child Benefit. They're used to getting payments from CRA. And we knew we had to automate. We knew it had to be a flat payment. That's what the system would allow us to do. And so within probably a week of the initial consolidation conversations, we had figured out the solution, designed the system, put legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, it is 4 p.m. now. However, I would very much like to complete our entire round. We have two more interventions, one from Mr. Bassaloux-Duval and one from Mr. Green, 2 minutes each. Minister, I hope that you can stick around for another 4 minutes.
I sure can. Paul, thank you.
Thank you. And if we can just let the technicians know that we'll be going slightly over time. So now we'll go to Monsieur Bassaloux-Duval. 2 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question, of course, is addressed to the Minister. And, well, it's based on my writing, but it's very similar elsewhere, I believe. Very often, a constituent will call the writing office on matters of EI. It's, in some cases, that's their first reflex. When we want to help the citizen, particularly when it's a EI, it might even take 2 days before we can get a call returned to us from the department. Files start to back up and etc. But insofar as the CERB, it's even worse because there's no way we can get in touch directly with the administrators of that. What are you doing to try to correct the situation?
As I said before, it's been very challenging for our Service Canada personnel to respond in a timely manner. As Cliff had said, we've tried to automate the response system as much as possible to get people the information without a human intervention. I completely appreciate that that is not satisfactory. We are pulling out all the stops to have as many people answering the phones. Solutions you have, we would be open to, but at the end of the day, with 8 million people having applied and millions more with questions, it is an exercise of patience and admittedly frustration that we are working really hard every day to address.
Thank you very much. Our final 2-minute intervention will be from Mr. Green. Mr. Green, please.
Thank you very much. Honorable, Part 18 of Bill C-13 amended the Employment Insurance Act to allow the Minister of Employment and Social Development, with the consent of the Minister of Finance, to make interim orders to mitigate the economic effects of COVID until the 30th of September. Through these orders, you are able to adapt existing provisions and add provisions for new benefits to the Act. The question is, what amendments have been made to date to the Employment Insurance Act to mitigate the economic effects of COVID-19, and how many Canadians have benefited from this?
Really important question, and Mr. Chair, I'm happy to give a thorough answer in writing to this, just because I don't want to miss any. But we had to create in this legislation whatever we want to do on the CERB side, we want to do on the EI side. So we want to allow people to earn $1,000. We have to make changes to both the CERB legislation and to existing EI systems. We wanted to allow seasonal workers, EI exhaustees, to access the CERB. We basically have to do parallel changes along the CERB stream and the EI stream. Graham, do you have a list with you? I don't want to miss any, but as I said, I'd feel more comfortable almost giving you this in writing to make sure I haven't missed any.
There are 4 interim orders that have been published under the regulatory authority, and we will forward those to the committee that cover cases that the minister mentioned, like, for example, seasonal workers whose claims were exhausted since December the 29th, to expand the category.
Okay, thank you. I understand time is tight. I appreciate, Mr. Chair, you making that exception for us. That really does matter. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're very welcome. Minister, thank you for your attendance here today. We look forward to perhaps speaking with you again sometime in the near future. But you and all of your officials, once again, thank you for being here. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties during the virtual meetings. We're all experiencing some of these technical difficulties from time to time. So I appreciate not only your patience, Mr. but also those of your officials as well as all committee members.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will endeavor to get you your answers very, very quickly to your 3 questions.
That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Colleagues, once again, we will be meeting on Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for your attendance here today. We are adjourned.